Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in again, especially thanking Nancy V, Robert S, Megan M, Giselle Carson, Kevin P, and Ben F for listening and reaching out to me. I always love hearing from all you. My email is info@jqqlaw. Please send me emails. I like hearing about what's on your minds and topics and information, sometimes answers to questions that I have. As a quick reminder, I'm going to be in San Francisco for the AILA National Convention or Conference, and I'm going to be speaking at the basic MBC panel, and also I'm going to be talking to the law student panel and probably having one of those lunches there talking about some topic that's a small lunch. Also, I've talked about the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. Thanks for all those who reached out and are on the mail list system. If you want to learn more about this product I'm designing, it's going to be a free product for doing a basic marriage case, I-130, I-130A, and adjustment of status paperwork. So far, I developed a system that so far could do most of the I-130, I-130A. Hopefully then I'll pick up and go to the G28s and 45s and all that. It's not a system intended to take over or compete with any of the big people doing this. It's very simple, especially if you're starting or if you have a small practice. Just so instead of typing the name over and over again, you do it once and it goes all over the place. These things are complicated, there's glitches and all that, and I'm debating how perfect of a system to put out before it's launched, but I think it's at a point where I can put it out and you can start testing it, see if you like it. It'll help out a little bit. Right now it's just the I-130, I-130A. Eventually we're going to put all the adjustment of status and the FAA support stuff, G28s, and maybe a cover letter that automatically gets created. So if you're interested in that, just go to the immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, put your email, and I'm probably going to just put it out in a week so you can test it out and see how you like it. And one quick note, there's this thing in Europe called the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. It's kind of confusing. I'm not really sure exactly how it works out, but be mindful of it. If you have European clients, you could create problems for yourself if you don't send information correctly, if you put an attachment of confidential information in an email and send it to them instead of putting it like on the cloud and some sort of secure way of providing information to them, or collecting their emails in a bad way. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because it takes too long to think about it, and I'm a solo. I don't have big firm resources, but it's something to be mindful of. Without further ado, a lot of this episode is going to be just me talking about one major story I think you should all listen to because it's pretty terrifying. And secondly, just the situation going on with immigration in society. And then ending up with little quick notes about practice and stuff like that. And then hopefully next week we'll go back to just normal banter like we always do. Alright, without further ado now, let's get it started. Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com. Okay, so here's the story I was talking about in the intro, and it's a pretty terrifying story if you're practicing immigration law and for the people involved. So one of my colleagues here in Los Angeles at lunch told me about a horrible story that happened to him, a situation happened to his client. So, I can't identify him, I can't identify the clients and all that, but I'll try to clean up the story and provide it to you. So, we all do marriage cases. U.S. citizen spouse has a fiance gets married in the U.S. The foreign national enter lawfully, so they adjust status, they get a green card. It's a typical scenario. Everyone does these cases without a problem, especially if they don't have criminal history, they never been NTA, they entered lawfully, all that kind of stuff. So in this case, our colleague had a U.S. citizen spouse, wife, who had a husband who was on a student visa, got married, so this husband decided not to go to school anymore. That lapsed, the student visa. But it's DS and all that. But enter lawfully, no criminal history, everything is okay. Case is pending. The guy got an EAD, AP combo card, just waiting for the interview. All of a sudden, one day, the guy calls my client and says, listen, ICE just called me on the phone and said, where are you? We need to come and get you. And he's like, what do you mean? They're like, no, we're coming to get you right now. And where are you? And he's like, well, I'm at my lawyer's office. Here's the address. And he got in a car, the client, drove to our colleague's office, and went in, and my client wasn't even there. All of a sudden his assistant, his receptionist said, listen, this guy's coming here, he's like really terrified and stuff, what's going on? So he rushed back to the office, locked the doors, and they sat down. He said, ICE called and said, we're coming after you. So I said, I'm at my lawyer's office. So he was like, what is this, a crank call? What's going on? So, you know, a couple minutes go by, they get a knock on the door. He puts his head out and says, who is it? He said, we're ICE, we're coming to get this guy, he's here. And so he's like, I can't let him do that. Close the door, lock, and just sit there and say, we're not coming out. So, you know, half an hour goes by, an hour goes by, 2 hours, 3 hours, the client's just drinking water, freaking out. And the bathroom in that floor was outside the door. So the guy's like, I need to go to the bathroom. The guy's like, well, we can't. The bathroom's outside. So he goes outside and says, the attorney does, and says, listen, the guy's got to go to the bathroom. Could you let him go? And they're like, no, we're not allowed. If we see him, we're going to get him. So the guy's that just holds it in, you know, fourth hour happens. Eventually the lawyer goes out and says, listen, why are you doing this? Like, this guy's not a primary target, he doesn't have criminal history. And they're like, well, it's our orders. Like, what do you mean it's our orders? Like, this is not right. So we're not coming out, so you could just waste your time here or not. And the ICE officer said, well, you know what, we'll wait till we can, and then the next shift will come, they'll get him. But we're going to be here, we're going to get this person. So he goes back in, waits on half an hour, and then comes back, and I'll say, listen, and tell the ICE officer, like, why are you doing this? This guy's ready to go. He's married to a U.S. citizen, entered lawfully, you know, had a student visa, never had criminal history, never been NTA'd. It's a simple adjustment situation. And like, we don't know. They just told me I have to get this guy, those two of those officers. They said, we don't know. They just told us to come and get him. And he's like, well, talk to the supervisor. They talked to the supervisor, got back, said we can't do anything. He's like, no, come on. Here's his paperwork. Showed the I-45 receipt, I-130 receipt, all this kind of stuff. They called the supervisor again, and you know, something happened. They just came back and said, okay, whatever, we're gone. And they left. And they waited a little longer, the client and the attorney, to see what happens. Nobody was there, and they left. And so it's terrifying because, you know, that guy went to the lawyer's office, and the lawyer was able to kind of handle it. Maybe it's because he got tired of waiting. Maybe it's because they didn't have any information what was going on. It was a snafu, a glitch that made him think that because it was because they don't know. They just, you know, hired goons to a certain extent, just running out there to pick somebody out without knowing that this is a U.S. citizen's spouse, no history. They want to take him in and, you know, process him and potentially hold him or something like that until a hearing comes or something like that. Even though there was nothing in that case that would pursue that. Eventually, you know, a supervisor looked at the case and realized this is, you know, a judge is going to see this and think it's ridiculous that they NTA'd this person because it was a straightforward case. It might have been a glitch, you know. It's shocking to me. If it was, you know, a person that entered unlawfully or had criminal history, I could completely understand that. But it was a clean case. And that's what's terrifying because this is like the average case or like the daily case that we all do and everything like that. So one thing I did after that is I contacted all my clients and sent them a letter that they could show an officer that breaks down their cases, that they're U.S. citizen spouses, and that they're waiting for adjustment interview and all that kind of stuff. And I say, you know, have this in your email, so if something happens, you could just bust out the email, show the attachments, the marriage certificate, the naturalization certificate, the receipts and all that with explanation of the dates of filing and all that kind of stuff, and the EAD. And better yet, you know, print all this out, have it on you all the time. It's kind of hard to have 10 pages of paper on you all the time. It's a little bit easier for the ladies if they have a purse, but have it in the car, have it with you, because it's your life. You don't want to mess around. So be mindful of that. If you have cases like this, traditionally I would just not even worry about it, but there is a worry. Under this administration, they're cracking down this hard on people that have lawful, easy, straightforward cases that are going for adjustment. So that's a very scary kind of thing to deal with. If you got that call from a client, it's nerve-wracking. But be mindful, this is what's going on in the next, you know, at least 2 years or 3 years, how much longer in this administration, and who knows how much longer. So that was a story I wanted to share. Now, honestly, this happened a couple weeks ago. I've been so hard to get a podcast out because I've been so busy. But hopefully it's getting to you, and you can tell your clients to just, you're going to scare the hell out of your clients. Actually, all my clients I told how to understand it. They weren't too scared. But, you know, this is just the nature of the game right now. The bigger issue, and that's a big issue right there, is just what the hell is going on with regards to civil liberties in this country. Because, you know, it's really falling apart. And we're at a cross-section as immigration attorneys in what we practice the field of law, which in my opinion, if tyranny is going to come to the United States, and tyranny is just, you know, having a centralized party or power source controlling the population for the ends of the elite that control that centralized source. And it's just like, you know, fascist Italy, it might be communist China, it might be, you know, Tsarist Russia, it might be communist Russia, or it might be Nazi Germany. When you have one group controls everything and dominates it, and adds actually an element of jingoism, is that what it is, or something that's it creates a minority group as a scapegoat. So Nazi Germany, the Jews, gypsies, gays, and that kind of stuff. And I'm very hesitant to talk about stuff like this. When President Trump was running for office, you hear like Trump's a Nazi, and I thought this kind of stuff is really extreme. And even in this podcast, I never really bashed the president. I'm not a fan. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for any of them, frankly, but I didn't even vote. I usually try not to vote for federal stuff because I'm just not down with any of that system. But at the same time, I thought it was like too over the top. Now, a lot of those kind of stuff have died down since the election, but I'm a what is that term called? One of those people who's always going to be opposite of the majority. I forgot what the term is, but now I'm actually feeling that's very sharp. And the way that would happen in the United States, where you have tyranny coming, I've come to the conclusion, is through the immigration system. Because that's where you can scapegoat a minority group, and put that pressure on them. And it's hard to do something like that in a country like America that's multifaceted. But when you hear the reports of what's going on, it's extremely scary. First and foremost, it affects me as a podcaster because news story came out. DHS is now tracking podcasters to see what they're saying and who they're saying it to and this kind of stuff to keep in their database. Now, frankly, they've probably been doing this for years, but now they just let it out to make it known, like, what the next steps are coming. And that affects me because I talk pretty openly here. I don't really plan on stopping. Now, I don't really talk about crazy stuff or call to actions of any negative kind of or scary kind of stuff, but nonetheless, the title of my podcast, the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. So if you type in immigration in iTunes, there's a few podcasts that come immigration-wise. There's a lot of general kind of stuff, but when you boil it down, there's like me and maybe two other people that are that hardcore just talking about their thoughts on the system. So that fascism is coming through by thought control. The point of that news story is probably to scare people not to, speak their mind. But, hell, this is America. We could do that kind of stuff. Now, next thing, President Donald Trump calls National Guard troops to go and militarize the border. That's another scary thing. Taking troops and putting them at the border just for so-called protection. Now, this caravan situation of people coming from Mexico, it's horrible optics. The propaganda of it it works really negative towards immigrants. So it was like not a good idea for them to go about it like that. Who knows? It might be even, the right-wingers push this kind of stuff because it looks horrible and it's on Fox News with regards to immigration and everything. But then, again, you have the, somewhat of a martial law aspect coming into play with troops going to the border. Now, a couple months ago, we had ICE buy some sort of computer system that analyzes all license plates. So for whatever reason, I think that's way overkill for ICE to do that. The visa process now is going to have a DS-5535 for everybody, not just Middle Eastern countries and such, that asks for social media information, phone numbers, emails, travel locations, and all that. So these are all tyrannical moves that infringe on the liberty of the regular population. So my point is this: I'm not. Frankly, if you listen to this, and I'm not afraid to say, I'm not like a Democrat at all, not a socialist at all. I'm not really right-wing either. I hate using terminology to describe myself, but free market capitalist, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian of sorts. I just do me. I look at every issue and I have to analyze it. That's why it takes time for me to have opinion on something, because I'd rather sit and think about all the different aspects and then give an opinion than to just say, okay, this is what the party says, I'm going to repeat it. So I don't really fall within these things. But this is super tyrannical, and it infringes on the rights of everybody. And so when you got to, always go to the man to get permission to do something, when there's going to be a guy with a gun holding a gun in a uniform, causing fear, causing you to change the way you do things, causing fear in the population, controlling the system. These are very, very scary moves, which, if the economy crashes, and Trump's done some stuff that probably could hold over the economy for another year or two at least. But if that system comes and it crashes, and then they start scapegoating the minorities, and they push this system, because Trump has support. They did a poll in California about the travel ban, and mind you, most people don't even know what the travel ban really is, and as I always say, other immigration lawyers, no one knows what the immigration system is. like 50 or 51% at least in California, Democratic California, were in support of it. And so when you have California pretty much a majority, simple majority at least, in support of the travel ban, then it shows you how powerful the movement against immigrants is, how fear could take hold of such a large population. And this is a situation where, for whatever it is, we have a low unemployment rate right now. People are making money and able to support themselves to enough. If that changes, what's going to happen? And that's a big, big worry that we really need to think about and support. And one of my friends on Twitter had posted, like, what's going to happen with the social safety net? They're cutting this and that. And I said, brother, there never was a social safety net. I mean, how much Social Security are you going to pay you? It's peanuts, especially if inflation kicks off. You can't even pay rent with that money. It's all about communities, and that's what this podcast is about, and that's why I like reading off the names of people contacting me, and I just do the first names. Just for the sake of knowing that this is a community, we're here to help each other out. I'm sharing information, sometimes do marketing stuff. I talk about that, creates competition for me, but that's not important. It's about always getting together and helping each other. And if you're with your family, help your family out, take them to the next level to be better lives, your neighbors and everything. We really have to rely on community. There's no social safety net. There's family, there's friends, and there's community. And that social safety net is a bunch of, propaganda that's created to alleviate the thoughts of the masses when it doesn't really do that much. But I don't want to get too far into that stuff. But the point is this: we got to be very careful, and we got to talk to people about the consequences of this. Because someone who is anti-immigration, okay, that's their opinion, that's fine. I'm not 100% pro-immigration on all types of things either. But when you talk about, why should police be reading all these license plates, and it's not about, well, if you have nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear. It's encroachment on people's liberty, because those people who have the power could abuse it, and they always do. In every case in history, they always abuse this power. It's never been not like that. So, it requires an understanding of history. It requires some open-mindedness, but it's very important that we be mindful of this stuff. Now, Trump also wants to get rid of tax credits. People that are, green card holders can't get tax credits, something like that, taking away these deductions. They're really pushing the public charge issue. So you see this at the embassies, like CDJ, people who have affidavit supports and joint sponsors that fully support the affidavit support requirement are getting denied for the public charge purposes. In the U.S., when you're doing adjustment of status, I'm getting RFEs now. They used to just file the tax return with W-2s, that was it. Now they want 6 months of pay stubs. They want a letter from the employer. I would only send these if the job didn't look good or something like that. When I was sending applications in based on assets, I would just send the most recent bank statement. Now they want 12 bank statements or an average balance from the bank. It's gone much more stringent. And a couple weeks ago, there was another issue about the census, about identifying people based on their status and all that. And it's a very dangerous thing, because census, that was used to intern the Japanese, and that's during World War II. And that's the thing. The Japanese who were here in World War II were here for generations. I mean, like, they were American. They talked with perfect accents. They had American names. They're Americans for all intent and purposes. And some of them fought on the U.S. side or were patriots. But they use that census information. It's come out to intern these people, take away their property, and not give it back. And that's what it's about: taking property from people. When we talk about tyranny, we talk about gun control. The people who are pro-gun control have this argument that like, if there's military troops come, there's no way you can fight it. The government has big bombs. There's no way to stop them. So having guns is not a thing. The point of a tyranny is not just to wipe people out. That's just madness. The point of a tyranny is to enslave and take the fruit of another person's labor. So by increasing the tax rates horribly high, or by forcing people to do labor or taking their property, it's a way of making money without doing the work, based on pushing a smaller group of the population that gets from a minority and bigger until that people finally get frustrated with it. And sometimes they don't in many countries, and they live in a perpetual state of tyranny. But that's the thing. It's all about just taking other people's time and money for yourself without doing the work, doing it through the threat and a fear of a violence or actual violence. And that's why we always have to look at the agents of violence and the tools, not other people, but the ones who could use it in a political way, in an organized fashion, and be very, very mindful and watchful of what they do. When you see ICE coming in on farms without warrants, coming to houses without warrants, coming in plain clothes, and this is something I want to go talk to my congressman. There's a dinner they're having next month. I'm going to go talk to him about this, and I really think you should always personally go, and this is something I want to start is, ICE has to do its job. I'm not bashing ICE because they have a mandate, and there are illegal immigrants here who are rapists, murderers. It's a fact, And if we use their police services to collect these people, then albeit they'll go for it. But when you have plainclothes ICE officers, stopping people on the street who are have unlawful entry, they should be NTA'd and go to court, but they have no criminal history. It's extremely dangerous. We shouldn't have plainclothes people hunting unlawful immigrants, plainclothes. It sets the precedent that in our streets, people could just get picked up willy-nilly by an unidentified source, and it creates a system of fear. It creates uncertainty, and it's harmful for the ICE officers themselves. Because imagine, like, I'm standing there and some lady next to me all of a sudden gets two guys coming to get her. Who knows, like, if I have to help defend my neighbor, I might do that, and I'm assaulting an officer. I don't want to do that. They have to identify themselves. If they're going to do that to a person that doesn't have any criminal history or any 911 kind of reason to pick up, they should come in regular uniforms with regular clothes and pick them up, so people know this is an authority that's from the government coming. It shouldn't be plainclothes. Now, if it's a dangerous guy who might have a gun or something, I understand something like that. But we got to draw that line. It has to be enforced, and you have to have warrants. This notion that people could it just goes to a lot of things, just go without warrants and wiretap all this stuff, is not something we should be used to. It hurts everybody. It doesn't help anybody. The reason we have freedom in this country is because we have freedom to have some privacy too. I mean, that's why America's more successful than everyone else. So we don't want to undermine that. It really is taking away our economic advantage, and that's where freedom gives us economic advantage, and that's why we're wealthy. It's there's a lot of reasons. Some are negative reasons why we're wealthy, but one of the main positive reasons is this openness where we could have our opinions. And I don't really think there's a threat of overturning the government or threat of violence coming from the people in the U.S. I think there might be some fringes, but that doesn't exist. And even with regards to terrorism, it's not large enough to take the system down or take the country down. So the only thing that could do that is undermining our own values to do that, and I see that every day, and it's easily done through fear. I remember when there was that anthrax, attack where somebody just sent a letter with anthrax in it. There were like people like wearing gloves to go open up their mail, and so we can't. That was a foolish thing to do because of the chance of something happening to some random person is just so small. It's almost. You're going to get hit by a car, more chance of that happening to you. Some random person getting hold of a dangerous chemical like that or a thing like that, and then mailing it to someone else. It's just not going to happen. But people are wearing gloves to go open up their mail. A lot of people, middle America. So if it's that easy to scare people, which it is, it's really easy to just throw away the system we have that's so successful just because of fear. And so that's what we have to battle. We can't have fear, and that's kind of the way Wes is putting it. We got to have love into it. Love thy neighbor and put love into it, and don't let that fear take over what you're doing. Now, I went on tangents on this kind of Kanye West stuff, but going back to it, California is pushing the sanctuary state law, but the local communities, Orange County, for example, is pushing back. City planners are saying, no, we don't want this. Very small cities are saying, no, we don't want to support. And the sheriffs, some of them are down with this. So one sheriff is saying, when we're going to release a person that's here unlawfully, who has, a lawful status, we're also going to announce it publicly so ICE will know to pick them outside, even though we're not supposed to cooperate. Another sheriff accidentally let ICE officers into the jails to go interview people and do stuff, and then apologize, say, oops, we made a mistake. So I highly doubt a qualified sheriff would make a big mistake like that. So you see, in California even, there's both sides happening. And what you see is, people can't go to courts. They can't use civil services when they need it. They're afraid now to call the police because police might come pick them up. They can't go to court if they're a witness even to a crime because they might get picked up. We even had a case where a woman and a man went to get married. The judge who was marrying him asked for status papers, they didn't have it, and the judge called ICE to come and pick them up. I mean, this is just insane that for a marriage ceremony is a deportation date for that person. It causes people, not want to go through the legal methods too, because when you're trying to do the legal methods, those are stopped. And it goes back to that original story I talked about when I started the show. So this is kind of a scary podcast. And my intent is just to keep it on your mind because it's really important. It's for the future of your family, and this isn't that far off now. We're entering this, we're into this 1984 kind of system. We're walking into it. It's not that far off anymore. So we got to be mindful of this stuff. Now, how do we have some resistance, and that's be violence begets violence. So that's not a good way to, go and be violent towards people you oppose or to yell at them and stuff like that. That doesn't go anywhere, in my opinion. Or if it goes anywhere, it's nowhere good. You end up causing a reaction that actually causes this thing you're trying to avoid. But there's two ways you could do it. One is go to the media. More people know about the lunacy of this kind of stuff and how the stuff that they're fearing is not real, the better it is. Now, honestly, the media, I don't really trust it. All the channels are bought and sold, bought and paid for. So alternative media is the way to go. Don't let these titles, alt this, alt that, dissuade you from going to podcasts or watching videos on YouTube to get real news. And how much of it is real and stuff, but at least it gets you different points of view so you can start analyzing for yourself and share this stuff with family and friends. It's really important to hear it and don't, if you have people that aren't scaremongers about it, then hopefully I'm not scaremongering too much right now. They can listen to it with ease just to understand it. And if it just nudges them a little towards the side of liberty and freedom and love and friendliness and community, that's going to be something that's good. So the media or public broadcasting or not even broadcasting, smallcasting is good. The other is lawsuits. So this year is the year I'm going to learn how to do federal lawsuits. I filed writs of mandamus in the past, like 8 years ago or something, and it took me forever to figure out how to do a lawsuit. And I didn't want to bother doing it because it wasn't the kind of practice I want to have. But I think this is something I got to do with the cases that USCIS is doing. We got to file lawsuits on this, FOIA lawsuits. Instead of going to AAO, probably filing lawsuits in federal court. And bring this stuff up constantly because there's no way around it. It doesn't seem like they're listening, and we got to do every lawful means we have to try to rectify injustice. And I think the courts are going to be the way to do it, and so we have to learn. So when I'm in San Francisco for the conference this year, I'm going to take a lot of the federal litigation courses, see what the best way to do this is, get some mentors on it and talk with them, and hopefully I'll interview a couple and probably have some programs to talk about how to do that. But that's going to be very, very helpful. And also supporting people that are doing this stuff. So, the American Immigration Council is doing some great work. Give them some money, a little bit or whatever, so they can support their lawsuits and their help for freedom. One of our colleagues, Shabnam Lutfi, she did a great job. She stood a federal lawsuit against the federal government for the travel ban because, as it seems like the so-called waiver that they put in place, only 10 people got it out of 10,000 or something like that. So if there's going to be this waiver program, if they set standards in it, they have to actually do those standards. So she did a great job, but filing a federal lawsuit is expensive, it's a lot of work. I really ask you to support her in the work she does. I wish I had a link to what the best way to contact. But email me, I'll send you the link. Her name is Shabnam Lutfi, last name is Lotfi. I'm sure if you go to her website or Facebook page, there'll be a link to this. It's really important we help her out with that. Now, speaking about the waiver situation with the travel ban, we are hearing this here and there that some are getting approved, but like the 2 or 3 Ronnie cases I've heard approved after media attention got onto them, that there were like relatives that are dying of cancer that needed to come here for surgery or needed to give bone marrow to a dying relative. They first denied but finally approved it once the news got on it. One of our colleagues had a couple of Yemenis cases that were approved, so that's nice. But it's not clear. Like, do you need to submit a waiver, or now they're saying you don't need to? I think in the, I didn't watch it, but one of my colleagues said in the travel ban hearing with the Supreme Court, they're like, no, we make the determination for a waiver beforehand. So having a waiver packet, is it helpful or not? Most of the times when people are calling me that they went on their own, random people are calling my office, they said they didn't even look at my waiver. I'm like, yeah, they just don't care. I think the orders from higher are that it's not something to look at. And the few who have at least not been denied, they say they just on their own said, okay, we think your waiver qualified, we're going to send it to Washington and wait. So the system, it doesn't make sense. They're kind of making up as they go along. I think the intent is just to stop people from coming. And frankly, it's really intent at Iran and its allies to be in the U.S., it seems to me. But it's a really wild situation. So hopefully these lawsuits and better understanding by the public of what the situation is could help things and make it better. Now, just going to practice management stuff. I talked about the Form I-864 having some glitches on like page 8 or something, where you're writing in the sponsor's employer and occupation. They fixed that, so that's working now. That glitch is gone. But one thing I noted is on the first page of I-864, it asks for the attorney who's handling it, their G28 and their bar number, which is kind of weird because they did they announced that they're taking question Q&As on updating I-864 form, and I sent this to them. I said, listen, like if I'm helping a joint sponsor do this, I'm not representing them, so I don't really want to do a G28 and develop an attorney-client relationship with them. And it's such a messy thing when you're doing a joint sponsor, but you're not representing them, because it puts you in a precarious position, because your interests are for the couple, not the joint sponsor, and so we can't really advise them and put ourselves as the attorney for them. So it's a really messy situation that they've created. I wish there was better guidance or a better way to do this. Also, 6:30 a.m. interviews are here. Several field offices are having people come for their adjustment interview at 6:30 a.m. That's going to be tough. That's going to be really difficult to wake up that early, because 6:30 a.m. means you have to be there by 6 just in case to get in, and there's traffic, means you got to wake up at 5. Now some people do wake up at 5, but it's so annoying. But at the same time, if it gets your case in, then these delays that are happening for adjustment get out of the way, then so be it. Saturdays and weekends they're having it. So just be mindful of this there. Now, with regards to EB5, Vietnam looks to be coming on the backlog group with China. So that's interesting. The Vietnam market is really strong. One thing with EB5 in Vietnam is the transfer of funds out and all that's very difficult. They have transfer restrictions and you gotta get special licenses and stuff. So that's kind of a mess working with Vietnam. Now, one thing that's happening is, for marriage cases, file the I-130. Sometimes in the past 4 or 5 months later, we get the I-130 approved and we move to the MVC phase. But recently, I've been getting I-130 marriage cases taking 8 or 9 months with U.S. citizens. And once you take that long, it kind of brings back to the old days when you would do K3s to kind of hurry up the process and get the foreign spouse here. I don't really use K3s. If you even go to the website for the K3 on USCIS, they say don't use it because the delays aren't that long. They even say that. But now these I-130s are taking so long in many cases, maybe it is time to start pulling out the K3 and doing that. I was talking to one colleague in Las Vegas at the conference there for SoCal AILA, and she was saying she always does K3s. And I was like, okay, like I don't do that because it's a hassle, it creates more steps and dealing with the government and all that kind of stuff. But that may be the way to go. Maybe doing the K3 is the way to go. Let's see. Oh, last thing about just practice and stuff like that. USCIS announced that it's creating some sort of system where they're mailing EADs and green cards and private documents, and you have to sign for it. And the loss that's happening for these kind of privacy documents in the last couple of years has been tremendous. It has been so just debilitating how many of this stuff are lost. But the way they just uprooted the system, and I don't fully understand what's happening clearly. I didn't make the conference call that they had this morning about it. But what people are telling me, essentially they're saying, well, it is what it is. But you have to have a person that's getting the document sign off on it. So what happens if that person, and you have to show ID for it. What happens if that person doesn't have ID? What happens if that person didn't update their name, their driver's license to their marriage name, but they only did it on the marriage certificate? Are they going to be able to get it? And or what if it's coming to the lawyer's office and you have a receptionist there that have to sign off on things, not the person that's there or the attorney of record? It seems like it's not well thought out at all. Now maybe they said there's a system where you can have the post office get it and then you go and pick it up from the post office. And I pressed on a link for that. I don't know where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do. I had to look into it more on that because it's going to be a while until the system actually comes in place. So hopefully there'll be better guidance on what the situation is. But it's just a mess. It's no thought into it. I mean, I know you're trying to help to get things lost less, but on the other hand, you're making it way too complicated and creating more issues where things are going to be sent back to USCIS because they're undeliverable more than ever. So it makes it very difficult to practice this area of law because it's just frustration after frustration. But when things do get approved, people really do appreciate them. And there's so much business. Every day, my business is growing and it grows at a double rate every year. And I was like, wow, I would never imagine there's this much business 4 years ago when I started my solo firm. Now I see these big firms or these middle-sized immigration firms. I'm like, they have 20 immigration lawyers. I'm like, there's that much business and more that's happening. And so it's just amazing really how much business there is and how much there is to get out there. It's probably there's this rule called the 80-20 rule where 20% make the most money, 80% are just struggling, or 80% are just not making it, 20% are making most of it. And as I'm entering, it seems like that 20% group, it's amazing, and I'm just like barely in there, how much money some certain firms are probably making from the practice of immigration. So there's so much business, and there's so many people that are down with it to hire these lawyers. So really, if you do your marketing well, make a name for yourself, immigration is like a great field. There's a lot of money. When I was in law school, the immigration attorneys that would come to law school talk were all like depressing, and it looked like they were struggling. So it was never something I was really into. And it's frankly, when I go to these meetings, sometimes immigration lawyers, some of the people I look at, I'm like, they don't look like they're really doing that well. But some of them, they look disheveled, but they're making a fortune too. So it's all over the place. But it really is, for business-wise, a good practice area. But it's just stressful because dealing with people's lives, and they're just playing games with people's lives. If they made a rule that's a harsh rule, but there was lines to it, I'd say, okay, well, that's the line. But when there are no lines, and it's make it up as you go along, that gets frustrating because there's no dependability of action, and then sometimes there's no accountability. There's no so just it gets frustrating, and it keeps bringing me down. That's why I'm like, what am I going to do lawsuits now? Then I got to do lawsuits because people got to be accountable for this stuff. It's getting frustrating. Now, thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're watching on iTunes or have access to iTunes, please leave a 5-star review, leave a nice comment. If you don't want to leave a 5-star review, then don't leave anything and don't leave a review. My email is info@jqqlaw.com. The Toolbox program, the website to go to is www.immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. That's where you can put your email in, and I'll send you updates, or I'll send you the information once I launch it, probably this week. So you can use that system and hopefully help your practice. And once I see people are using it, getting their feedback, I'll grow it and all that kind of stuff. So essentially for now, if you have a marriage case that's going to be consular processing, you just have to do the I-130, I-138 now, so it works well for that. And then once we kick in the adjustment of status paperwork, that'll be really handy because the whole package it takes a lot of time. That'll save you a lot of time on that. I'm going to be in San Francisco at the MVC panel talking about that, but I'm just going to be in San Francisco. Last year when I went to New Orleans, I pretty much didn't go to any other panels because I was just talking to people and meeting viewers and listeners outside the rooms. That's what I did most of the time. So I imagine that's going to happen again. Hopefully I'll get some things in, but I get the recordings anyways, and I listen to them throughout the year. So I'm not too worried about not making them. I'd rather just meet y'all and talk with y'all. My social media, I wrote notes. So I have social media. Let's see what would be good. Oh, LinkedIn. You can follow me there. I post my videos there too. A YouTube channel for videos. It's the Immigration Lawyers channel on YouTube. So that's where I post the videos of this podcast if you wanted to see me while I'm talking, how my office and situation are. Might be interesting. Again, thank you so much for listening. That's the end of this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. Hopefully I'll be publishing a couple more this month, hopefully. Till then, have a great one. Bye-bye.